Yesterday was
Hi, folks.
Hey!
All right, well, it's past 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Doesn't look like, unless this is him here. Somebody at the door? Nope, that's a change of mind. I think everybody knows me. I'm Jim Caldwell. I'm the town meeting moderator for North Brookfield. And with us is Ethan Millard, the candidate for the Board of Health. The other candidate, John Tripp, I guess decided he didn't want to come tonight and participate. So we'll make this a night of information and see what we can learn about the Board of Health and your job and why you want to be where you're at, that sort of thing. A little background on the Board of Health. The Board of Health is kind of one of the agencies in town that operates mainly under the radar. You don't see a lot of activity outwardly from the Board of Health because the things they do are on a daily basis. Where the Board of Health got its start from was back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Government started to realize that a lot of the pandemics, the plagues, the sicknesses that were going around could be prevented. That a lot of it was a completely preventable thing, and if they worked together with government, they could, and doctors and scientists, they could figure out ways to prevent these things from happening, and thereby giving us a better quality of life. And the early boards of health were all called sanitary commissions, and gradually they picked up different responsibilities as they went. And we'll try and touch on some of those tonight, and I'll let Ethan tell you what those responsibilities are. But the whole thing has a very deep, rich history that is there for our benefit. And so, and with it, we'll move forward now. I'm getting off on a tangent here, so why don't you go ahead, Ethan, and tell us about yourself, you know, and...
Sure, yeah. My name is Ethan Millard. So I've been on the Board of Health now for 3 years. This will be a new term for me. And so I guess I'll sort of jump right in, if you don't mind, with question one sort of leads right into that. Is that okay?
Well, I kind of want to stir things up here a little bit. So.
Well, I guess so I can also tell you, so I've been living in North Brookfield now for about 12 years. We've got 2 kids here, other family here, so invested in the town, something that that I feel strongly about in terms of helping people here, and that's a big part of why I like this job.
Great, great. Okay, can you kind of give us an overview of what the Board of Health responsibilities are?
Yeah, sure. So it's really multifaceted. There's a lot, like you were talking about just a second ago. A big part of it is public health and disease prevention. So there's that. There's also then maintaining sanitary conditions in living quarters and exterior areas around and outside people's residences, and then also maintaining environmental conditions and protecting against pollution. So for us here in town, most recently, obviously, in terms of public health and disease prevention, we've had to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, which was very difficult and not an experience that most of us had had before. So, in helping the town during the past 3 years, we did a lot to help people individually as well as help the entire town. So by helping the entire town, we were able to set up vaccine clinics. We were able to, and we set up, I believe, 8 clinics with a total of 2 doses each. So we had 16 different dates on which most of the Board of Health members were in attendance for those clinics. We provided COVID tests, home tests, for free, which we delivered if residents asked us to. We had a fairly large job sort of messaging the public about COVID, about the awareness that they sort of needed to take and the responsibilities that were put on them to make sure that the virus didn't spread. So that was sort of, we had a lot going on with COVID, and I can talk more about that if we want to. But in addition to that, then we also had our longstanding things like flu clinics. We had to notify people about things like West Nile virus for mosquitoes. We had to let people know when water conditions in ponds weren't acceptable for swimming.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all these notifications that we need to provide people in order to maintain their health and well-being. So there we've got the disease prevention and
Mm-hmm.
public health aspect. We, during all of this, even while we were doing all that, had to take calls and complaints regarding unsanitary conditions, both inside and outside. So things like responding to excess trash or hazardous materials that might be on people's properties. And then that also leads into sort of a sort of hybrid area where we sometimes have to interact with homeowners and tenants who
Mm-hmm.
may have need social service help in order to deal with those sanitary conditions.
Right. Now, I served at least 3 terms. I don't know, John, how many terms was it? Quite a few. At least 3 on the board. There's a number of daily things that have to be done, like the inspections, for instance, for restaurants and food inspections and that sort of thing. Title V inspections. Who handles those? Is that something you would do, or is that something that would be put out to an individual?
Right. No, we have a health inspector who is actually an employee of the town of Leicester. So we work with the Leicester Regional Public Health Coalition.
Okay.
It's a grant-funded partnership, so they are able to employ staff that then help us do our jobs. So we have a health inspector out of Leicester who will call if we need a restaurant inspection, if we need a home inspection, things like that.
Okay.
We'll call her. Then in addition to Leicester, we have our own Title V agent, and he's the one who performs septic inspections and perk tests and things like that. We also have an animal inspector, and she'll go out and check if there are any animal issues that are called into us.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three inspectors that we use.
Okay. Now, how do you disseminate where these people go, or arrange where they go and when they go? Do you all take a hand on the board and arrange schedules, or is it?
No, it's
through the clerk, or?
it's through the clerk, and it's pretty much on an on-call basis.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get a call into the office with a complaint or a request for a permit inspection or something like that, then the clerk will generally contact the inspector that needs to be sent out, and they'll take care of it and then report back to us when that's complete. We were without a clerk for a short amount of time, so board members did play a pretty significant part in coordinating the inspections as well.
Yeah, it's tough when you don't have somebody that can answer the phone on a daily basis.
Exactly.
And to stand in.
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right, we got that one. On the shared services with the Regional Public Coalition in Leicester, you said that was grant funded.
Yes.
So when do you anticipate that grant running out, and when it does, what do you anticipate happening?
Yeah, so my understanding, actually as of just this week, DPH has said that they have guaranteed funding through FY27. So
Okay.
we've got at least another 4 years under this current round of funding. They say that they expect it to continue after that. The state has tried to do these, they have sort of been working towards these types of shared service and regional or collaborations in the past. And I think this is sort of the most recent and maybe the most productive version that they've had. So I honestly think that it's something that is going to continue. I'm not too worried that we're going to all of a sudden be out of funding and stuck on our own again. Were that to be the case, we would probably know enough in advance that we'd be able to adjust the budget. And as we did for many years, we had our own public health nurse, we had our own health inspector, and so
Right.
we'd have to go back to that setup.
Okay. Is there anything else that goes along with that grant that you're required to do or anything like that? I mean, does it just pay for like health agent and that sort of thing, or do they require something else of our town to?
No, they really require nothing of us,
Yeah.
which is actually, I mean, it's really fantastic that they're effectively able to just provide services that we don't have the capacity to do.
Grants are kind of a double-edged sword sometimes, you know, you end up paying, and get the money from the grant foundation, and then you find that there's a number of things you have to do to satisfy those grants. And you also have jurisdiction over the landfill, is that right?
We do.
Okay, and the transfer station. That was capped when I was in my first term. John and Bob LaFlamme and myself, and a couple others, you know, that we commissioned a company to design it and set that up. So it's been in use for quite a while, and it works very well, but I don't know that everybody understands how the whole system works with the recycling in here. Could you delve into that a little bit and let us know, you know, how the whole system works and what funds what? And
Sure, just how the center operates effectively.
Yeah.
So we have what's called a pay-as-you-throw system. So effectively, the revenue that's raised from purple bags that everybody uses being purchased is what helps pay for the operations of the facility. The town does provide some funds as well, it's subsidized, but for the most part, it's self-sustaining in that the revenue from the bags and then revenue from recyclable commodities like the plastics and unfortunately not so much the papers anymore, but they used to provide revenue. And then some of the other items that get where there are fees to drop off. So we bale and sell, or at least bale on site papers and plastics. The glass is thrust into a roll-off and that gets taken away. And it basically just depends on the market as to whether we're getting revenue for those items or not. But even if we're not getting revenue in general, it's a cost savings for us to do the labor up front rather than having all this waste piling up and getting taken away more often than it is now. And then, so that's pretty much how it works. I mean, I think everyone knows also we do have the take it or leave it shed, so people can bring in things that are reusable and people can take them and use them again. We recycle metals, we recycle TVs and computers and LCD, LED screens. We just recently started, so there, as of last November, the state implemented new waste bans. So now textiles and mattresses are both forbidden from being put in solid waste trash. So we have a container on site now that is for mattress recycling, and then we have 2 bins that are for textile recycling. So none of that stuff goes in our trash anymore.
now, when you say textile recycling, that's clothes and that sort of thing. What about upholstery items? Is that?
So things like couches, yeah, that's, to be honest, it's a little unclear from coming from DPH. I mean, it's, items that are covered in textiles, I don't believe are part of the ban. There are textiles involved. And I did write, so the mattress container that we have, I did write a grant for us to get that. We actually had that a year before the ban took place. So I wrote a grant to get that container and implement the recycling program now for that. And then now that the waste ban is in place, we're paying for the service, which is part of the reason why we have to charge for people to drop their mattresses off.
Okay. Now, for those of you that don't know, that transfer station is built on top of an existing landfill. Way back when, we were ordered by the state that we had to cap that landfill because it's not lined. We want to prevent the leachate from going down into the ground, so the landfill was capped and the transfer station was implemented. And like anything else, it requires a certain amount of upkeep. Could you elaborate on testing and things of that nature that may be required, or upkeep that we have to do on a regular basis? And one further, the transfer station's getting up there in years. Is there any plans for any renovations or things of that nature to bring things up to date or fix up?
Yeah. So first, I guess, so we've got the landfill both needs to be mowed And then the recycling center, obviously in the winter, needs to be plowed. There's brush clearing that often has to be done. There are unfortunately beavers in the waters to the back, which have on a number of occasions, I don't know if you ever had to do it yourself.
We did, we did.
Had to clear out some dams there. And then, yes, so there are multiple testing sites. I honestly, I don't know the frequency off the top of my head, how frequently they get tested, but they do get tested. And if we're ever found out of compliance, obviously they're...
Okay, now, when we say testing, what are we looking for in those tests?
We're looking for the contaminants in the groundwater.
Okay,
I don't know
right.
specific contaminants
Well,
off the
yeah,
top of my head.
right. I'm not looking for that. I just kind of, it was, I was thinking to myself, that didn't sound too clear. What are we testing for?
Sorry.
Well, duh.
Yeah, right, no, groundwater, yeah. Especially because we do have residences not too
Right,
far
we don't
away.
want to contaminate the groundwater, so we want things to be tested so we can determine where, how far it's gone into the groundwater, if it has, that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay, I think we got that one.
They also added air. So we have the wells that test the groundwater,
Yes,
but we also test the air. This may have actually happened after you were on the board that they added that.
okay. For
and
methane,
It's various things, that explosive limits for methane, if you could have them. We've been lucky to not have them. We have had chemicals that clearly did not come from households that have been in the groundwater that have left the landfill's, perimeter, and that we've had to pay to replace a well across the street from there. So for in perpetuity, forever, we have to continue to test this and take responsibility for all of what went in there for all these years. And it being not lined on the underneath side, we're going to continue to have migrating things. So we test wells of people downstream from us, and in order to make sure people are made whole, if there's a problem, the Board of Health has to step up and deal with it.
okay, thanks, John.
I'll also just take this opportunity to say that everything that I know about the landfill, I know from John.
As do I.
And I know about this much of what John knows.
Yeah. Well, Johnson
That is
Institution.
the aw shucks answer. This man has been doing this for the 3 years that when I was on the board with him, and continuing to institute new things related to the landfill. And since then, I mean, he essentially ran this recent household hazardous waste. We've been doing this regionally, and one of the first regional household hazardous waste in the state of Massachusetts, permanent center, that we ran for years. And Ethan brought this back. We haven't had one in, all of these COVID years. And he set that all up, went through all, and put the people in place to run that day. And, there's an enormous amount of things that he's learned in that last 3 years, and it's why it's crazy to not have sustainability in members. And I did my 30 years, but you need new blood, and the new blood is younger and smarter than the old blood. And some of the things that Ethan has instituted, just in that hazardous waste day, the ability to do this on iPads instead of by hand, and be able to have all of the information done at the end of that day is something that, is second nature to someone of his experience and age, whereas old fossils like myself, I don't even own an iPad. So,
Okay, thanks, John.
I realized I also didn't mention in terms of upgrades or alterations. So we don't have anything planned at the moment, but we do have a reasonable amount saved in our revolving account as well as our grant account. And there have definitely been discussions with the board about, whether it's just small renovations, painting, finish work that needs to be done. So that conversation is definitely there, and I hope that's something we can get to.
Good. Let's see. What are some of the other issues that you'd like to work on over the next 3 years, if provided you're reelected?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a lot. I mean, I think, so one of the things that we have been doing, that again, is sort of like you were saying, beginning sort of really behind the scenes, but we've been doing a lot to streamline and make the office more efficient, redoing a bunch of our forms, standardizing our forms and our fee schedules with some of the surrounding towns. So, you know, so engineers who are working in one town don't come over here and are totally thrown off, and likewise, you know, residents here aren't complaining about costs being different here from other places. So working through all the permitting forms and schedules and things like that, even though it's not very flashy, I think actually makes a big difference. Like we were just talking about, sort of improving some of the recycling center operations and the facilities. So whatever we can do to improve those buildings, we may need to put some money into some of the machinery. You know, we sort of do maintenance regularly, but you never know when something's going to happen. It might be worth looking at preempting some of that. We had talked about doing some aesthetic upgrades. You know, actually I just ordered some new signage. So we'll have new signage and clearer instructions and things like that. Also potentially repainting, maybe adding some more aesthetically pleasing aspects to the center so that people are more drawn to it and people can see it from the road. And you know, it's a utilitarian facility, but it could also look nice. So, and then the last thing, which is not something that I am all that familiar with, but I think that we have a lot of people both on board and in town who can help with, is sort of expanding our involvement with local social services and mental health programming. Jillian is in that field. So Lewandowski obviously is really involved in this, and so I think we have some really great resources and people that we could work with to make that happen, because that really is a big part of public health, for better or worse at this point.
Okay, can you elaborate a little more when you say mental health? I mean,
well, I think it's pretty wide ranging. I mean, like I said before, you have people who end up in unsanitary conditions due to mental health problems, and so that can be sort of, you have to deal with it both from a waste removal as well as a you know, a personal position. Another thing is, so the state has come to make a settlement with opioid manufacturers.
Okay.
Do you mind if I
That's on there,
bring that up? Yeah. So the state is going to be, the town rather, is going to be getting roughly 250 grand over the next 8 or 10 years, depending. Sorry, 150 grand. I'm going to backtrack. It's getting 150 grand through 2038 from one settlement. There are an additional 5 settlements after that, which are each, they range from like 17,000 up to 33. And these are all spread out over the course of a number of years. But these are all specifically for opioid and substance abuse remediation, mitigation, treatment, and otherwise helping people. So a lot of that money, I think, would be great to be put into programming, put into help, put into assistance for people in the community, and programming that could, you know, educate and help people.
Excellent, excellent. I got to go there. I'm sorry. There's a lot of scuttlebutt around town about a survey. What's the straight dope on that?
So the community health assessment is a survey, and there were a few different versions of roughly the same survey. It was put out to the community in order to gather information on how people act, how they feel, and what their health conditions are.
Okay. Was it aimed just at the community, or was there specific areas of the community it was targeted to?
So there was a general community survey. There was a survey for seniors. There was a senior for high school students, and there was a survey for I believe elementary school parents. They're all voluntary rather.
Okay.
There was no requirement to take them. There was no requirement to answer any particular question or another. And basically the results were to be used in determining what sort of programming might be beneficial for people in town. If we saw that a lot of people or a lot of kids were smoking, then, you know, maybe we need to work on tobacco control. If we saw that a lot of people were without enough food, and we need to work on some food issues. So that's where it was aimed, and it's not different in any way than surveys that have been around for many, many years all across the country, and this one just happened to be available to us in part because of our partnership with Leicester. They were working on them both for Leicester as well as the other towns, and it's great for all the towns in the region to really get a sense of where their communities are at with their health needs.
Okay, all right. Let's see here. I'm stirring it up, just so.
Shuffle there.
Let's see. Having hindsight of 2020 on the COVID epidemic, are there any things you do differently now? You know, if you had to do it again, how would you approach it? Would there be anything different to do this second time around?
Well, I don't know that I would do a whole lot different. I think that having the knowledge that I now have would make things run a lot smoother. I think we spent, a lot of time figuring things out.
Learning,
Yeah, it was a really, really steep learning curve. But ultimately, I think that pretty much everything we did really well. One of the things I was actually remembering today in sort of thinking about all the clinics that we put together is we actually put clinics together when the state had stopped supporting local boards of health. There was a time when they were offering vaccine to local boards, and we were all set to start some clinics, and then they shut it off. So we went down to Hannaford, we talked to Sarah Lamas, who was the pharmacist there. We worked things out with her and with Hannaford, and we were able to hold clinics here. So I think we were really resourceful. Hopefully next time there might be a little bit of a better path provided we have state. But I think overall, like our involvement with volunteers and our ability to schedule people and find people to do basically every little thing.
Right.
I think it.
Well, I got both my shots there, so. Let's see, we already covered the settlement. All right. If anything in your term that you could do a redo on next term, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think that, I think again, I don't know if I would redo anything. I think that now in hindsight, I have a better sense of how to do things. The hazardous waste day that John was talking about, it went off really well. It took a lot more work preparing than I expected it would. I spent a lot of time. We had to work out intermunicipal agreements and schedule meetings with the other towns and back and forth. And now that that's completed, there's sort of a set way. Next time I can just be like, oh, we're just going to do it like this.
Right.
The same maybe for hiring our clerk. It took a little longer maybe than we expected. Granted, that had a lot to do with workforce shortages and not as much to do with our ability to get it done. But at the same time, having now we have a set job description, which we didn't have before.
I got to jump in on that because it's pertinent to this whole thing of sustainability and having somebody on a board. We missed a lot of people in our regional agreement that we've had for 20 years now on paint collections, then hazardous waste collections. And we have new members in these other towns. And so Ethan had to go and get all these people on board that were new and essentially rewrite stuff that we did years ago to satisfy these people that didn't have a clue. And brought them all together to pull this off. And we didn't get all of our towns. West Brookfield did participate, but it was not for any lack of trying. But again, next Hazardous Waste Day, Ethan will hit the ground running. And you have to build a relationship with the hazardous waste people, and it takes the same person calling that company every year to be able to make sense of things. And I'm no longer there to do all of that. They can ask me questions, but there's got to be somebody on the board that does that relationship building. And there's a new person at St. Harvest too. So, this is why it's so important to have people in all of our towns working regionally over a long period of time, because if you lose members on these boards, it really hamstrings that kind of cooperation.
Okay. Anything you'd like the voters to know?
Well, I guess I would just say sort of, I really believe in the importance of the Board of Health, and I think like you said in the beginning, we're a little under the radar, but the things that we do are really integral to not only people's lives in town, but the way that the town runs. And I'm really invested in it, and I think that I have proven myself over the past 3 years. I think that the board as a whole has done a fantastic job, and I'm happy to have been here and helped with it. I think that it would be difficult to be on 3 separate boards and still be able to put in the time that this job requires. I don't think that that would be really a tenable position for someone to take on. I'm a little disappointed that Mr. Trick isn't here to sort of discuss that with me tonight.
As am I.
Because I think we could have had a good conversation about that. But I'm definitely prepared to continue. I'm excited that we've got a new clerk in the office. She's great, and it takes a whole lot of load off of the 3 of us.
Is she here tonight?
She's not here tonight, unfortunately.
Okay.
But, taking that sort of day-to-day operation off of us allows me to really put more effort into the bigger picture things that I'm excited about working on.
Good, good. Any questions that anyone may have while we're...
About how many hours a week do you really have to put into this? It seems, I mean, I knew nothing about what the Board of Health does. And I'm amazed at how much has to be done. I don't know how you have a full-time job and do this. When it interferes, I mean, especially during COVID, didn't it, you have to stop what you're doing at work and take care of emergencies all the time. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. It was a lot. During COVID, I would say for most of 2020 and 21, it was pushing 40 hours a week. I think the past year it's slowed down, and definitely now that we have Kylie as a clerk, it's significantly less, but it's still a major commitment.
How many of you are on the board?
3.
3. And you all put in a lot of these hours.
We put in a lot. Yeah.
So you really need to work well together to get everything seamlessly done.
Yes, exactly. And there is also, there's a lot of interaction with other boards, with the Board of Selectmen, with the town accountant, with the treasurer. Like there's a lot of behind the scenes finesse that has to happen. So it's not just a meeting once a month.
Anyone else?
I know a lot of us appreciated the partnership with Harrington Hospital and the convenience. I have friends in other parts of the state who went crazy trying to get COVID shots. Could you just describe a little bit how that developed? Because it was a boon to so many people here.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was mainly facilitated by Trevor Brusso, who was the former chair. And he was able to, I'm not sure who he worked with initially, but create a partnership with them. So where we supplied some people to help them at the hospital with some administrative work and some nursing work. Then we were, Harrington, they worked out a system with a number of towns where they were able to sort of apportion, allot a certain number of vaccine slots to each town and each Board of Health. So through that partnership with them, we were able to get, I think it was somewhere around 60 slots per week. And then we had a call down list, and we would call people, and people would call us, and we'd schedule appointments for them. And a lot of people had trouble doing it online, and so we helped them with that. And yeah, it worked really well. And then they sort of transitioned out of that a little bit into the pandemic, and that's when we started working more on our own.
It was watching that operation at their facility was a pleasure. It was handled so efficiently that given the circumstances with COVID going on, it was really nice to be able to focus on something that was really well done throughout, from your end here in town to down there in Southbridge, and made it very convenient for people in this area to get their shots we hoped for so long. So,
That's great to hear. Yeah, I'm glad it really worked out well.
Okay.
During that time, there was a liaison, wasn't there, between senior communities to get the senior citizens vaccinated?
Yeah,
Because I seem to recall there was a whole thing going on with the seniors that you guys coordinated and really made a big effort to get all of the seniors vaccinated since they were at such high risk.
Right, yeah, we made every effort to be in contact both with the leadership here at the senior center and then over at senior housing as well. We did a couple of rounds of in-home vaccines as well for people who couldn't leave their homes. And we did a clinic actually at the community up on Not Pleasant, corner Not Pleasant. So yeah, we definitely made an effort to get out to the seniors because they were the hardest hit and the most vulnerable.
Okay, anything else? No?
Can Jillian talk about the health fair next week?
Yeah. Sure, we've got a free advertisement in here, yeah?
Well, I mean,
If you don't want to, it's all right, you don't have to.
Because we have the, we're beginning to be collaborative. And the school is doing a lot of work with, mental health and services. And, at the end, when we're done.
Absolutely. And that actually just reminded me, I failed to mention, I just wanted to thank everyone at the North Brookfield schools in the past couple of years, Maureen Floyd and Sarah Priestley, of course, at the elementary school, helped immensely with coordinating the vaccine clinics there. That was great. And Rich Lynn when he was superintendent as well.
Good, good. Okay, well, thank you very much for attending tonight. For those at home, again, I'm very disappointed that Mr. Tripp didn't come. I thought we could have had a very constructive conversation tonight and maybe some common ground or meetings of the mind that we so desperately need in our town right now. The division is far, far too deep, and if we don't fix it soon, it may not be able to be fixed. And I would hate to see that. This is such a dynamic little town, and we have a lot of talent here, and we just put our heads together and use it. So, again, good night. Thank you for showing up, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.